Welcome to Coffee with Kish. Hi, I'm Kish, and I would say we're here to geek out about Mormonism because we are, but the occasion for talking about Mormonism today is unfortunately a pretty sad one. As you know, this past Wednesday, Charlie Kirk, a political opinionator, pundit, leader of Turning Point USA, on the right side of the political spectrum, was gunned down in a cowardly fashion by a sniper at the university located in Orem, Utah. That's Utah Valley University, killing him pretty much instantly by striking him in the carotid artery in the neck. It's an abhorrent, an ugly, a horrible murder. Our hearts go out to the Kirk family, his friends, his loved ones. It's a tragic day for them. It was a tragic day for them. Now a couple of days have passed, and we already knew there would be a Mormon connection because many of the students at Utah Valley University are LDS. Orem is a very LDS town located in a county with a very high percentage of registered Republicans. This may be one of the reasons why the security seemed a little lax, and I'm not here to criticize the university and the local police for their security efforts. I don't know anything about security. I'm not qualified to speak on that topic. But reportedly, there weren't a whole lot of police. Mr. Kirk did have his own security detail, but it being a traditionally Republican area, kind of Republican stronghold in Utah, I think people would have assumed, and unfortunately we're learning that we can't assume much of anything, people would have assumed that Mr. Kirk would be among friends, among well-wishers. Among Mormons, he might have been assumed to be safe because, well, there aren't a whole lot of Mormons who engage in political violence. Now, Mormonism does have its own brand of political extremism, yes. Different cultures have their own brands of political extremism. But I'm pretty sure people assumed that Mr. Kirk would be safe, and I can't really blame them. I would have assumed that in this Republican stronghold, he would be safe. But he wasn't. Now, the further wrinkle is that Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old white male who has been arrested for Mr. Kirk's murder, is also LDS. Tyler Robinson hails from southern Utah, from a place called Washington, Utah, in the St. George metropolitan area. His parents are registered Republicans. This does not mean that Tyler is a Republican. I don't want to imply that. I don't also know that Tyler was a radicalized lefty. Now, much is being made out of the anti-fascist statements that were carved on the casings of Mr. Robinson's bullets. And so the automatic assumption of many people is, well, if he claims to be anti-fascist and he murdered Mr. Kirk, he must be one of these quote-unquote radical left lunatics, which is the phrase that particularly those associated with President Trump and President Trump himself tends to use in reference to people who are opposed to his presidency and his politics. I don't know, honestly. I don't think we can make any assumptions about that. It's possible, certainly. But what really jumps out at me is that we seem to be seeing a new breed of political radicalism that doesn't yield to easy definitions, simple definitions. Rather, we're seeing young people, like the man who attempted to assassinate Trump, who ended up striking him on the ear, apparently. His political profile was very murky. I think that the online environment has a big influence on the thinking of these young people. And the online world is a messy world. Now, what about him being Mormon, being a Utahn? Isn't Utah a Republican Mecca? And don't all Republicans in Utah support Donald Trump? It's true that many LDS people in Utah are Republican, and that many of those Republicans support Donald Trump. But it's also the case that there have been notable holdouts from Trumpism among the LDS people. And I think I understand why. Iconic in this category is Mitt Romney, a former presidential candidate. Mitt Romney did not like or approve of President Trump's politics. Mitt Romney is a really sort of mild conservative in the old definition of conservative, straight-laced, upright, decent fellow, whatever you think of his politics. And so Donald Trump's style did not jibe well with Mitt Romney. And I think Mitt Romney is representative of a lot of LDS people. And I think as time has gone by, there have been more LDS people who have opposed Donald Trump. And honestly, that will be as much because of President Trump's apparent morality that isn't consistent with LDS morals and values. LDS people tend to take their values and morals very seriously. Now, I know there will be LDS Trump supporters who completely disagree with me, and of course, that's fine. But I've been struck by the relatively high-profile politicians of the American West who have taken issue with President Trump and his politics, have testified against President Trump in Congress. It suggests to me that there's the potential for incompatibility or a perceived incompatibility between President Trump's politics and some LDS conservatives, people who've always voted Republican. I have family and friends who I would characterize as conservative Republicans all their lives, and they do not support President Trump's politics. And I'm not here to comment on politics from a partisan perspective. I'm an independent, and I'm not making this a political channel. I'm trying to keep politics out of it. Politics is the subject here, But I'm not advocating for the rightness or wrongness of anybody's point of view. Instead, this is a Mormonism channel, and I have to talk about it, I think, because this incident takes place in a Mormon-heavy area. Lots of Mormons in Orem, Utah. Lots of Mormons at Utah Valley University. And alleged shooter, a young LDS man. Now, was he active LDS? I don't know. According to his family, he had become more political in recent years. Does this mean that he was super radical left wing? I think when I talked about those Republicans who don't support President Trump among the LDS people, I did so for a reason. I can see an LDS conservative or someone with more conservative values, an LDS person with more conservative values, who does not like President Trump, who does not like a person like Charlie Kirk. And I say a person like Charlie Kirk because Kirk and Trump are very closely aligned. They're very socially close. And Mr. Kirk's killer evidently thought that Mr. Kirk is a fascist. I'm not here to comment on his political definitions, but that wouldn't necessarily need to come here from a far left perspective. Whether others understand it or not, I think Mormons can be surprisingly, independent in their politics. And I'm not saying that doesn't mean they vote Republican, but you can't just lump them in with all of the rest. They'll surprise you. They've surprised me, and I grew up among them. I've been both surprised at those Mormons who've embraced President Trump, because I thought that was very inconsistent with their value system. And I've also been surprised after that to see those Mormons, and there are not a few of them, who or do not cooperate with or do not support President Trump's administration, his politics, the politics of President Trump's friends. So this is just my perspective as an LDS person. And I grew up near the Washington, D.C. area. LDS people are very patriotic. So if you think that Tyler Robinson hates America, well, you may not agree with Tyler Robinson's America, but I doubt he hates America. Mormons generally really, really love America. They are very patriotic, and their patriotism is actually rooted in their sacred books, in their scriptures. The Book of Mormon, the chief scripture of Mormonism, is an American Christian document. In the Book of Mormon, we see an account of Jesus visiting America, and of America being a land of promise for a branch of the Hebrew people. Mormon scripture calls the Constitution a divinely inspired document. That in Mormon scripture, God claims support for the United States Constitution. Okay, so I think that without being a radical lefty, as some have claimed, and I think, I was saddened to see people jump to this conclusion without evidence that the killer must be a radical lefty. He may be. I mean, he may be. It may turn out that he is. But I'm just telling you, as a conservative or Mormon, or a Mormon from a conservative background, one who's extremely patriotic, just as people in Trump administration find some people on the left to be a threat to America, of course, some people find the President Trump regime or his presidency to be a threat to America. And I'm not going to weigh in on that. It's not what this channel is about. But is it logically possible for Tyler Robinson not to be a radical lefty, but to believe, for whatever reason, not justifying his position, that at least from his political perspective as maybe a conservative LDS person, might he disagree with the political views of those around President Trump, including Mr. Kirk, and see them as an existential threat and be radicalized enough to take that to the next level? I think it's possible. I'll be interested to see what comes out of this. I don't have any better information than the rest of you, but what I do have is a background very deep in Mormonism. I was raised to be very patriotic. I was raised to have a very strong belief in the divine inspiration behind the Constitution of the United States. And I took that very seriously. So I've always been and remain, at least in my view and in my heart, a very patriotic American. But I have this perspective of being LDS, being patriotic, being around other patriotic LDS people who lived outside Washington, D.C., worked for the federal government, worked in presidential administrations, worked on Capitol Hill, worked in journalism covering politics in Washington, D.C., and I know that there's a range of LDS opinion, that the LDS love of country is very strong. Anyway, I just want to reiterate that I'm very sad. I'm sad mostly for Charlie Kirk's family. I can't imagine how devastating this is. I'm sad for the people he loved, the people who loved him, the people who looked up to him. It's got to be a really, really hard time. What I hope it doesn't do is further tear us apart as a nation. Because I honestly believe that there are a lot of people out there, most Americans, we love our country. We may not agree on what's best for the country, but we love the country. I love our country. And I hope we find a way to heal and reunite. I hope that people understand that we can't make assumptions about Mr. Robinson. Obviously, he became a troubled young man, and he did an awful thing, and he will be punished for that thing. This crime is a horrific, horrific crime, and it comes at a horrible time in our country. This is Coffee with Kish. Take care of yourself. Be there for the people who love you. Be there for the people you love. Be there for your family. Hug them. Love them. Follow the law. Exercise your rights as an American citizen by expressing your views openly. Don't let extremists with guns scare you away from the ballot box, scare you away from the podium. Right now, our freedom of speech is under attack. And we can't let those who want to destroy it win. Coffee with Kish. See you next time.